I've been watching YouTube ever since I was a kid, and I've seen so many videos titled Top 10 Roller Coasters in the World, or My Favorite Roller Coasters. Let's face it, we know Steel Vengeance is one of the greatest roller coasters ever built and features some of the best moments on any coaster. The same goes for Universal's masterpiece Velocicoaster, which is highly praised for that Mosasaurus roll. And of course we can't forget about the legendary drop on El Toro, especially in the back row. I want to share my top 15 roller coasters as of August 2026, but I want to do things a little differently. Instead of dedicating this video to just listing my top 15 favorite roller coasters like you've probably seen before, I'm going to explain why 14 of them aren't my number one coaster. In other words, this video is going to break down the biggest thing holding each coaster back, and there will be some controversial takes. Don't worry though, I'll still be sharing what I love about these rides too. But more importantly, I'll explain the one flaw that keeps each of them from claiming my top spot. Before we kick off the video, I would like to note some honorable mentions, which includes Phoenix at Knoebels, Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Millennium Force at Cedar Point, and Nitro, the best B&M hypercoaster, at Six Flags Great Adventure. Additionally, with over 200 roller coasters ridden, I want to mention the areas and parks that I have not been to yet. This includes the west coast of the US, although that will be changing very soon, as well as all the major parks down in Texas. Carowinds, Dollywood, and Kings Island are also three notable parks that I have yet to experience. I was very fortunate to make it over to Europe thanks to coaster breaks, so you will see several overseas coasters featured throughout the list. Kicking off the list at number 15 is Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. This B&M Giga reaches a top speed of 92 miles per hour and stands 306 feet tall. What I love about this coaster is how the first drop feels like it's never going to end. You're just floating out of your seat for what feels like 5 seconds. Additionally, the first half of the layout is quite forceful and whippy while providing some nice moments of floater airtime. I'll also throw in that this ride is a people eater, which is always a huge plus, especially for a crowded park like Canada's Wonderland. However, once you reach that turnaround, this ride is essentially over in my opinion. Despite having all that speed, I feel like whoever was responsible for designing this ride just wanted to get back to the station as quickly as possible. Overall, Leviathan is a great coaster, but that weak second half is what ultimately brings it down to number 15. At number 14, we have El Toro at my home park, Six Flags Great Adventure. This prefabricated Intamin wooden roller coaster is one of the most well-known roller coasters in the world. In my opinion, the first drop in the back row may just be the best first drop on any roller coaster, period. For someone who loves ejector airtime, this ride should be my perfect cup of tea. However, where it falls short is how inconsistent it rides. I'll give Six Flags credit because the retracked final turnaround, which was easily the worst part of the ride, now rides like butter. But still, there are so many potholes, and as I age, I just can't simply re-ride this thing over and over like I used to. Not to mention, during the colder months, especially during Fright Fest for example, this coaster can kind of crawl into the brakes, which I'm just not a huge fan of. Just over 2 hours away from Six Flags Great Adventure is my number 13 roller coaster, Skyrush at Hersheypark. This Intamin hypercoaster has many similarities to El Toro in my opinion. The first drop is elite, especially in the back row with that kink of ejector airtime. In addition, there are 3 very strong ejector airtime moments throughout the ride. However, also like El Toro, where it falls short is how it can kind of just die out towards the end of the ride. After that final ejector hill, it sort of just meanders around Comet before hitting the brakes. I'm also going to play devil's advocate here and say that the new restraints have taken away some of the ride's intensity. Don't get me wrong though, the new restraints are so much more comfortable, but the lateral bracing they provide makes this ride significantly less scary. Skyrush was one of the few coasters that actually gave me a sense of fear because of the lack of bracing around the sides of your waist. Not to mention, only your thighs contacted the restraints too. With the new restraints, Skyrush simply lost a lot of its character. Heading over to Six Flags New England for my number 12 favorite roller coaster is Wicked Cyclone, my first experience riding an RMC iBox roller coaster. This coaster made me fall in love with RMC's design style, with its constant spam of ejector airtime hills. The outer banked airtime hills, along with the zero-G stall, are easily the highlights of this ride. However, at the end of the day, this is an RMC iBox roller coaster from 2015. RMC did not add any additional height to this coaster, making the first drop feel just a little bit underwhelming. Some of the elements during the turnaround in the second half of the ride also just feel a little bit repetitive and unoriginal. And unfortunately, I've said this several times already, and it won't be the last time, but during those morning runs, it can just sometimes crawl into that brake run. Overseas in Germany at number 11 is Taron at Phantasialand. This Intamin LSM launch coaster might just be one of the most beautiful roller coasters I have ever been on. Though, Phantasialand really does make everything beautiful. Perhaps one day I'll make a video discussing my top 15 amusement parks because Phantasialand would be very high on that list. Getting back to the coaster though, what I love about Taron is first, it's super re-rideable with those Intamin restraints. Second, it features 2 punchy launches with the second one easily being the highlight of the ride. Third, the way it interacts with the terrain is simply amazing and it makes you feel like you're going a lot faster than you actually are. And fourth, night rides. However, where this coaster falls short is its lack of an identity in my opinion. After both launches, it's aggressive, whippy, and features at least one strong moment of airtime. But after those moments, it essentially turns into a family coaster, weaving around the terrain and pathways. It's cool, but it's not thrilling. The ending of the ride is also a bit of a disappointment as you hit the trim before doing a tight turnaround into the brakes. I just really wish this was designed differently. At number 10, we have Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. Spoiler alert, this is the second of many RMC iBox coasters to be featured on my list. The ejector airtime on this thing is strong, and there is a lot of it despite only being 111 feet tall. In my opinion, the rapid sequence of ejector airtime hills between the cutback and final 0G roll is fantastic. The 3 large sustained ejector airtime hills are a fun part of the ride too. However, where this ride falls in my rankings is due to the lack of a traditional first drop. Don't get me wrong, the barrel roll down drop is really neat, but RMC makes some of the best first drops, especially if you are in the back row. With this key element missing, I simply can't rank Twisted Timbers any higher. What does have a traditional first drop is Wildcat's Revenge at Hersheypark, which takes my number 9 spot. This ride was absolutely worth the wait, and I'm so thankful to have one of the best coasters in the world so close to me. The first drop in the back row is fantastic, but what really shines is the remainder of the ride after the 0G stall. The wave turn tries everything in its power to throw you out of your seat, and then you're met with a double down that gives you some crazy lateral G-forces, which is pretty unique compared to other RMCs. Following that, the downward 0G roll is so whippy, especially in the front, and then the rest of the ride provides strong positive G-forces on the overbank turn, a 0G roll, a quick pop of airtime, and a very abrupt but thrilling ending into the brake run. Now that we're within my top 10, it's going to get harder and harder for me to explain what's holding these coasters back. To be honest, if any of these remaining coasters are your number 1, I totally respect it and completely understand why. However, when it comes to Wildcat's Revenge, I'm just not a huge fan of the first half of the ride. The step-up underflip is kind of basic, the turnaround with the small wave turn doesn't hit as hard as it should, and the 0G stall is pretty weak. But considering what Hersheypark and RMC had to work with, they did an incredible job with Wildcat's Revenge. Heading a few hours south to King's Dominion, we have Intimidator 305, Pantherion, at the number 8 spot. Now, this ride really doesn't fit in with anything I've justified with the last few coasters I've ranked. It provides limited airtime, the restraints aren't the best, and it really isn't a long ride. But this is one of the few coasters that still scares me to this day. The lift hill looks absolutely massive from the ride's entrance, and the cable lift pulls you up incredibly fast. Then, the turnaround after the first drop will always make you gray out and may even tweak your back like it did to me because of those extreme positive G-forces. The transitions are also so snappy that sometimes they feel like they shouldn't even be possible. I don't think it's controversial to say that a coaster like this simply will never be built again. As much as I love it, it is just way too intense for the general public. I was lucky enough to ride it a few days ago, and I noticed that not many people can even scream on it because of how intense it is. As I mentioned earlier, the minimal airtime is really my only major issue with this ride. Besides the first hill after the intense turnaround, it doesn't provide much in the way of ejector airtime. If they could have snuck in 1 or 2 more airtime hills, or maybe even found a way to avoid trimming the final airtime hill, this ride would be so much better. In addition, those classic Intamin over-the-shoulder restraints just aren't the most comfortable. Speaking of those classic Intamin over-the-shoulder restraints, At number 7, we have Maverick at Cedar Point, which was actually my favorite roller coaster when I first started counting credits. Without a doubt, the highlight of this ride is the second launch. It may not be the fastest or most intense launch, but something about launching 70 miles per hour out of a dark tunnel and immediately snapping into the trims is such a wild transition that catches you completely off guard. Like Pantherion, Maverick's transitions offer extreme lateral forces along with some airtime thanks to those aggressive directional changes. However, also like Pantherion, I just wish it had a few more airtime moments throughout the layout. Similarly, those Intamin over-the-shoulder restraints are just not the most comfortable. What does have comfortable restraints is Voltron at Europa Park, taking my number 6 spot. I'll be honest, I was not expecting this ride to rank so high on my list. It just does so many things right. First, even before entering the ride, there was so much atmosphere in the queue that just gets you even more excited to ride. The 105-degree launch is insane, giving you so much hang time on that first inversion. The other inversions are incredibly whippy too, and the airtime is seriously strong, like RMC level strong, which completely caught me off guard, especially considering I rode this in the winter. The stall following the LSM boost gives you even more crazy hang time. The best part of the ride though is the sequence following the swing launch. After that top hat, you experience an insane ejector airtime hill, followed by an outer banked wave turn that is incredibly whippy and forceful, and then a double up leading into the mid-course brake run. But don't worry, this mid-course brake run does not slow you down at all, as you forcefully drop from it, experiencing a pop of ejector airtime right into a corkscrew, followed by an intense turnaround that will make you gray out. Honestly, I could just keep going on and on because there are so many great things about this ride. Unfortunately, there are 3 major issues that keep this coaster out of my top 5. First, it simply does not ride like a brand new coaster that opened in 2024 should. I do think some people are overreacting by saying it's too rough. Personally, I didn't find it rough, but there were some sections, especially during the sustained positive G-force moments, where I wish the ride was smoother. Secondly, the turntable is a huge momentum killer. With minimal effects and no real show building, I found many riders were just starting to have normal conversations to pass the time until we were set up for the swing launch. Sure, it's nice to catch your breath, but waiting over 30 seconds for the next launch is just too long. Finally, this is minor, but the brakes before the turntable hit really hard. You better be prepared and holding on to the restraint, otherwise it will hurt. I am going to keep this one short and sweet. Coming in at number 5 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. I don't need to say much about why this ride is so high on everyone's rankings. It has the ejector airtime, the crazy first drop, the incredibly long ride duration, unique inversions, and just so much more. But besides RMC's restraints that make my shins want to cry, I have one major issue with this ride. During my visit in 2026, I found that Steel Vengeance was actually running better in the early morning than at night. This will almost never be true for any other RMC. But why, you may ask? Well, it all comes down to that mid-course brake run. In the morning, those trims were completely off, which meant the drop off the mid-course, the double up, and the twisted airtime hill delivered pure ejector airtime. However, at night, that mid-course brake run significantly trimmed the ride, changing those elements from strong ejector airtime into floater airtime, which is just not my cup of tea, especially on an RMC. It was such a buzzkill having an elite first half during a night ride, only to get trimmed so hard in the second half. Well, this one really hurts to talk about, but coming in at number 4 is the coaster that delayed this video by over a month, Air Force One at Fun Spot Atlanta. With Fun Spot Atlanta's closure, I made the trip on July 25th to get my first and final rides on Air Force One. And all I have to say is, holy f***! I knew this coaster would break into my top 10, but I never expected it to be this good. In my opinion, this coaster is the perfect example of what I love in a roller coaster. The relentless pacing, insanely strong ejector airtime moments, and snappy inversions like the arcade roll and Raven Trust Dive are all just so perfect. And of course we can't forget about that quad down, which was so aggressive and maybe a little bit painful, but despite all that, I just loved every second of it and found myself laughing every time we slammed into that brake run. Overall, this ride literally has no dead spots in the layout. It also has no bad seat, as the front row is much better for the arcade roll and Raven Trust Dive, while the back row is much better for the first drop and the drop off the double up. The ride's only flaw, besides those RMC restraints, is the duration. It is a short ride, but for what fun spot and RMC created, they absolutely knocked it out of the park, and I truly hope I get the opportunity to ride this coaster again at another location someday. If Air Force 1 and Steel Vengeance had a baby, you get Iron Gwazi down at Busch Gardens, Tampa, which comes in at my number 3 spot. Just like Air Force 1, Iron Gwazi features relentless pacing, insanely strong ejector airtime, and some crazy fast transitions. But instead of standing 154 feet tall like Air Force 1, Iron Gwazi towers at 206 feet and packs an additional 600 feet of track. In my opinion, that 91-degree first drop, the death roll, and the wave turn, especially in the back row, are easily the best moments of the ride. In the POVs, this coaster may look like it's lacking airtime, but trust me, it is not. In fact, Iron Gwazi delivers so much ejector airtime that it started putting holes in my friend's shirt. Besides becoming an upcharge attraction, which obviously isn't the ride's fault, I really only have one minor complaint. I appreciate the suspense created by slowing the chain lift as you crest the top of the hill, but I really wish that programming would be removed. Not only would it make it ride even faster than it already is, but it would also help improve capacity since Iron Gwazi only runs 2 trains. Staying in Florida, at number 2 we have Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. Funny enough, this ride really isn't elite in any category. Every RMC on this list has better airtime, Voltron takes the cake for the inversions, and it isn't even over 200 feet tall, but somehow it still lands at my number 2 spot. The reason why it ranks so highly is because there isn't a single category where Velocicoaster underperforms. The pacing never stops. There's ejector airtime, it's intense, it has a great ride duration, it's extremely re-rideable thanks to those comfortable Intamin lap bars, the launches are punchy, and the theming is excellent. Besides the Mosasaurus roll, which watching POVs does not do justice since you literally get upside down ejector airtime, I want to shout out the dive loop in the first half. This element catches you completely off guard and yeets you out of your seat, especially if you're sitting in that front row. My only complaint, which is honestly pretty minor, is the 0G stall. Out of all the 0G stalls I've experienced, this is easily the weakest one. It's still a fun element, but I just wish it was a little more sustained. We've finally reached the moment you have all been waiting for. My favorite coaster as of August 2026 is Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland, Belgium. I just have so many great things to say about this ride. The restraints are super comfortable, and the fact that they lower automatically is so convenient. I also love how you can look over and see your friends or even complete strangers looking absolutely terrified while riding across from you. As for the ride experience itself, the JoJo roll out of the station is wicked. It is genuinely terrifying being upside down for that long while spinning with only a lap bar. The launches are fantastic as you randomly begin spinning throughout the ride. You even get ejector airtime in the front car while going over the top hat, which completely shocked me. The drop off the top hat in the back is ridiculous, especially when you're sideways or backwards. All the inversions, especially the 0G rolls, are phenomenal, and they become even crazier when you experience them sideways. And the airtime towards the end of the ride is also incredibly strong. This coaster truly does not let up until the brake run. In my opinion, this is the most re-rideable coaster I have ever been on because every single ride can feel completely different depending on how the spinning affects your experience. It is also easily the most unique coaster I have ever ridden. I still don't understand how it's at this park, especially when it's a kids park, but this ride is insane, and they have it. And there you have it, my top 15 roller coasters as of August 2026. This list was incredibly difficult to make, especially with so many amazing rides that just barely missed the cut. At the end of the day, rankings like this are completely subjective, so this video is ultimately pretty pointless, but I thought it would just be fun to put together anyways. And I also want to emphasize that the things I mentioned throughout this video that I dislike about certain coasters are simply the reasons they aren't higher on my list. I'm not someone who goes to a park and complains about every little thing about a ride. I love almost every roller coaster I get the chance to ride. Anyways, I'm extremely fortunate to have ridden over 200 roller coasters across the US and Europe, and I can't wait to see how this list changes as I continue traveling, riding more roller coasters, and experiencing even more amazing rides. Thanks for watching.